live. When we finish, we'll debrief afterwards. Right, Mariella, we are
Yeah.
live on
Hello.
line. Hello.
Hi. My familiar just jumped on the table and she's very interested in my microphone. So I'm just hoping she's not gonna.
Knock it off.
She's gonna. She's here
Oh,
now.
look, there she
Hi,
is.
sweetie. Yeah.
Hello. What's her name?
This is Fleur.
Fleur.
Fleur the
Okay.
familiar. But she's
Fleur the
always
familiar.
in my face when I do these kind of things or when I do tarot. Don't.
Yeah. They just
Yeah.
know, don't they, cats?
Yeah,
My
she
dogs
knows.
will probably be scratching on the door in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, listen, you're in Cyprus and
I
I'm
am
in
in
the
Cyprus.
UK. And excuse me, are you 2 hours in front of us? You are, aren't you?
Yes, it's 9 p.m. for me. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of a day have you had in the office? Tell me about your day.
Well,
Evening,
I
ladies.
start my day.
Facebook user. We've got a Facebook. Oh, isn't that awful? It doesn't.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Linda. How are you, darling? All right.
Yeah, I think when you use StreamYard, you have to accept or allow them to use your name. Otherwise, you show up as anonymous.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I will tell you about my day as soon. I'm just gonna get rid of this beautiful feline. Hi, sweetie. Yes, I love you too. Come on, baby. She's not willing. Okay, there we go. Come on, there we go. Yes, she's.
God.
Now I started my day as I do every day. I start writing. That's what I do from 7 to 8.
Yeah, good.
Very persistent.
The cat's back.
And then I have I have a deadline. I'm working on a project for a client, and so I've been editing all day for this. This is my day job is editing other people's work. So I've been behind the PC or my laptop all day. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and more interesting. Yesterday I was able to catch a mama cat who has her kittens around the building next door. So I had to pick her up from the vet this morning because we had her neutered yesterday.
Okay, and that's part of your vocation in life, isn't it? Looking after all these cats.
Yes, yeah, and in Cyprus there's a huge cat problem, so it's hard work. But that was sort of my highlight, being able to pick her up and bring her back home.
Yeah.
So how was your day?
Well, I've been in between walking dogs, which I've done twice today, which is normal, which is great because it keeps me grounded, and the dogs walked. I journal first thing when I get up in the morning, and what I've been doing is kind of basically prepping for tonight because I wanted to just make sure that I'd got the questions because I put out into some of the groups that I'm in, like the Witchlit group, if anybody got any questions that they wanted to ask about the books. And so I was gathering those together and I printed those off. I listened to yours and mine podcast episode that we did last year. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, of course.
And just to remind myself, and what a good episode that was. You know, that was brilliant. And it was interesting because at the end of the episode, I said to you, okay, Mariella, and what's next for you? And you said, well, I've got this idea that's been sort of germinating for a couple of years, and it's about a tarot book.
Well, I wonder which book that was.
No, I think it was this one because you did actually say.
I know it was this one. Yeah.
Yeah, you said it was Tarot for Entrepreneurs. Yeah. And here you are now, and it's out.
Yes, and I'm still surprised I actually managed to do that. He is really obnoxious. She's never this bad. She must feel all the witchy vibes.
Yeah, that's it.
So this is I love that I can't remember, of course, so we talked about that. But yeah, that was really, I had to set it as a goal to actually finish it, actually sit down with it, because I've been working on it since 2019 or so, on and off. And I've had people, I shared some. I'm so sorry, she's really disruptive.
Oh my God.
You know, I have
put her outside.
No, they don't go outside. They don't go outside.
Goddamn cats.
She's really, I've never seen
in
it
the
like
bathroom.
That. Oh no, she's
bonkers,
the most, yeah, she is. But yeah, I really had, because I've been sharing some spreads for people with people in one of my Facebook groups, and they were like, "Are you ever actually gonna finish this book?" And I also, and I don't know if you have the same, but I kept forgetting about it as well. Like, as I was working on other projects, I was just like, it just was so far on the back burner that I forgot that I was working on it. Until somebody started poking me, and I was like, oh God, yeah, that really needs to. Yeah, so for 2023, I was like, okay, this is the year I'm going to finish it.
Yeah.
And I did.
Well, my copy arrived yesterday. And what? Oh God, I wish. Do you know what? I can never work out what. Oh,
we have.
So everybody, there is.
Okay, your camera is better because that's the actual. That's the your color. That's the actual color. Mine is a bit blue because of the backlight, I think. But yours is the actual color of the book.
Yeah. So that's Marielle's book. Hello, another Facebook user. I'm sorry if we can't see your name, but perhaps you two ladies that. Where it says Facebook users, can you put your names in the comments so that we can at least say hello properly?
No,
it's awful, isn't it, saying Facebook user? It's awful.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Yes. So when did you publish that? When did it come out?
Oh, what was the exact date? I don't know actually, because I'm really bad at that. But I did the Kickstarter. I can't even remember that. It's been a bit of a year. A while ago. No, so maybe it's been out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. So it's really recent. Like, yeah.
Same amount of time.
Around the
Hello,
same time.
Jenna. Yeah. Okay. So for our ladies in the audience, or our audience so far, can you tell us, Marielle, what your book is about? I'll hold it up. So I'll do the posing, and you can talk about
it. You'll do that, yeah. I'll do share because I also have the hardcover here. This is my first hardcover. It's like full color. It's really fancy.
Oh, that's gorgeous, isn't it?
So what is the book? It is specifically aimed at entrepreneurs, and when I say entrepreneurs, I mean business owners. I don't care if you have a big business or a small business or a charity with cats, for example. Come on. It is for those who want to work from the heart specifically. So I made it, all the spreads in there, I made it with sort of the thought in my head that in this day and age, when we ask for advice, there are so many people who are very loud and who will tell us exactly how they think we should conduct our business. And especially when you're starting or when you're unsure or when you're making changes and doubt creeps in. So you aren't, when you're in transition, for example, you're often a bit more vulnerable. And I often find that, I will get back to myself eventually, but initially I often think, okay, but they say this and they say that, and what do I do? And I get a little lost. So the spreads in the book and the other, it's not just tarot spreads, there's a bunch of practices in there. They are all geared towards making sure that whatever decision you make, it's your decision and it's aligned with who you are, with your core. So, because that is, for me, it's one of the things I've seen over the years, is that it's so easy to get off track, especially when you feel a bit insecure about what you're doing or unsure. And it's really easy to look at other people and be like, oh, but they're successful and they do it like that. Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the way they went about it is the perfect way for you or is aligned with your values or whatever. And it can be really hard to stick to your values.
I agree
in those
with that.
moments.
Yeah, particularly in the marketplace at the moment when there are so many marketeers all, shouting from the rooftops, aren't they? Most of them.
Yes.
You
Do
know,
this, do that, do it this way.
Yeah, I do it this way. How to earn $1,000 in 5 seconds, sort of thing. And come on. But anyway, that's rather extreme. But we do, she says, sounds like a book I need, values-based business decisions. Yeah, honestly, Linda, it's a good
That's book.
A better
summary. That's a better summary than I can give, actually.
Business decisions. At the end of the day, you, what have we got? At the end of the day, what have we got to be? Our intuition is our guiding compass, isn't it? And if we have been seduced into signing up for somebody else's program, no names mentioned, many times, then you feel like, oh my God, this person, I've got to listen to this person's resonating with me. Yes, I need to do this and I need to do that. And then you enroll into these programs and you discover that you've got to have all these extra things, or you think you have. That's what I've found. You think you've got to have all these extra things. And I have found, really, at the end of the day, you just got to do things your own way. I mean, of course, there's a basic structure to running a business. And more than I do, because you've been in the business of writing, haven't you? If not as a writer, as a coach, for how many years now, Marielle? How many years been doing it?
Officially, so that's when I kicked myself in the arse and actually went to register as a company. That happened in the spring of winter. It was still winter of 2014. So that's
quite a while,
going towards a decade. Yeah, but I've been working. I was doing the work before that, but at one point, because I'm originally from the Netherlands, there's only so much money you can make without being an official company. So at one point I just had to make the appointment with our Chamber of Commerce and actually, became VAT registered, and et cetera, et cetera. So I have that, I know that date, but I've been doing it, a couple of years before that. Yeah.
Because I've done one of the spreads in the book. I did it this morning. That was part of my morning practice.
Yeah, part of my morning practice.
And it was, I can't remember what it was called now. Selling out. Oh God, I was looking for the book. And it's in my hand.
It's called Selling Yourself Without Selling Your Soul, I think. There's so many,
yeah, that's
let me just look up where is it? I've never had a 3-page table of contents before.
Yeah, I know. Well, you've got 50 spreads. That's 50 chapters, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing is that some spreads are actually 3 or 4 parts. So there's actually more spreads in them than 50.
Knowing why, I can't remember what it was. Selling myself out without selling my soul.
No. Not selling out, unless there's a huge typo in the book.
Sorry, selling myself without selling my soul.
The whole book is about those people who don't want to sell themselves out. That's the audience for me.
Yeah. And the first card which I pulled, which I think probably is the most important card, was what kind of marketing strategy is the most aligned for me. And the card I pulled was the High Priestess. There you go. Don't listen to any other book. Just listen to yourself.
Yeah, that really doesn't surprise me when I think of you and what I know of you. That doesn't come as a surprise to me. Yeah. But it's exactly that's exactly one of those spreads where I'm like, there's so many people are telling you have to do it this way, you have to do it that way. And this is why I love that we're talking about this today, and we talk about both our books, is because a lot of that fears and a lot of those bad decisions that we make are when we're stuck in that scarcity mindset, that lack of abundance, that I need money. So they say, if I do it like this, I will get the money. So we don't ask ourselves, is this really how I want to be conducting my business? We just yeah, we just, well, they say if I do A, I'm gonna get B. And so my book is more like, okay, but first, you have to ask yourself every step of the way, but is A what I want to be doing, or do I envision a different path for myself that's more aligned with my soul, with my purpose, with my values, with who I am and who I want to be and how I want to be a business owner in this day and age. I think we need a few more heart-centered business owners these days.
Yeah. I think that there are quite a few people that are have got the balance right. There's a lot of marketeers that I've seen in the business world recently that are they're coming from the right place. They're coming from the spiritual center, which is great. And but I don't know. I get a little bit disillusioned, if I'm perfectly honest, because I think that, you join these things, or even as an author, having been an author now self-published now for 7 years. When I first joined the indie author community, the ones that were doing well at the start were the ones that had the marketing backgrounds. The ones that had come from corporate worlds and had done marketing and, were familiar with social media and working online. And at that time, I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. I'd like to think I've got a bit more of a clue now, but, I kind of bumble along. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same was like, I have no clue. Yeah.
But I think, okay, we're not really going off track here, but I mean, we're both indie authors, we're both self-published. So I think let's just think of the things that you need in place, really, or that you need. What are our priorities business-wise? It's quite a simple structure, isn't it, as an author, really? I think it's really building your list, isn't it? It's having a list, and working on building your newsletter list, because our newsletter is our town crier, if you like. If social media all fell flat tomorrow, then we'd lose all our followers, we'd lose all our friends, but we wouldn't lose our email list, because that is separate. So we could still market, we can still chat to our people in our newsletters, but we can't do it on social media anymore. I mean, that's the kind of theory behind it, isn't it? Am I right?
It is. And that is, my newsletter is definitely my weakness. Yeah, I have a whole, I told you I have no clue of marketing. No, I have a whole plan for 2024 to shake things up there. But I feel that is for me sort of the last frontier. Like that is the thing I still have to tackle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm pretty much the same. But having said that, I have been writing more regularly to my people on my list, because I've had things to tell them. I've had a book coming out, but I don't only write when I've got a book coming out. I like to write a newsletter when I've got something, like tonight, for example. I was really excited wanted to tell people about that. Gave them the links to YouTube and Facebook so they could watch it if they wanted to. I've got another one coming. Had a podcast out sort of last week. I've got another podcast guest coming tomorrow, so that'll be next on the agenda. So because I've got it in my head now that this is how I want to market, really, is putting out live shows, working on my podcast, and basically working with other people, because that's what I really enjoy. I think as writers, we spend enough time on our own, don't we? Well, I know I do. And as much as we need that introversion. Don't we need to be introverted to write these damn books? Otherwise they wouldn't get written. But I also like to satisfy my extrovertism by and sociability by just being with others, you know, even if it's only online. And I love doing this kind of thing. I really do, because I think it's a great way to meet other people, stay in contact. I mean, I was looking forward to chatting with you tonight. You know, it's been a year. It's been a year, hasn't it?
It has been a year, yeah. And I mean, I don't know how so you have some extroverts, like on the scale, on the Myers-Briggs scale, I am 96% introvert, which is really high. Yeah, so I have very little extrovert in me. So I have a little less. Oh yeah, this is the Myers-Briggs test. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
What's that?
It's also called the 16 personalities test. So it will teach you like it's based on the idea that there are 16 main personalities. So for example, I am an INFJ. I'm just going to ask if anyone is watching, if you know your Myers-Briggs, just post it. I'm an INFJ, and there's a whole book on INFJ writers.
Okay.
And the funny thing is for me is that most of the clients that I coach, or writers that I coach, they are INFPs, and they have a very specific brain, and that affects how they can and cannot write. So I'm an INFJ, but I attract mostly a very particular. So when I start coaching people, I always ask them, do you know your Myers-Briggs score? And not all of them do. Sometimes they do the test. It's 90%. They're INFPs. INFPs. I don't know what I said before, but INFPs. And it's so interesting to me that these are the kind of writers that I attract to help them through their struggles and their writer's blocks and stuff. So yeah, I find it fascinating. But on that scale, on their extrovert introvert scale, I'm like almost entirely on one end. Yes, most people are a bit more mixed. So, I think.
Do you get out at all?
Currently very little. Yeah, I have very crippling social anxiety, which people are always really surprised by. So currently, the most I get out a lot quite now because of the cats next door. There's about 10 kittens and 2 mother cats that we steam, and my plan is to get them all neutered. So I'm out more now because, every other day I grab one of them and bring them to the vet and take them back.
Yeah.
So I'm forced out. But I'm very, the pandemic really didn't help for me as well. Like I was very comfortable in isolating myself, and I still need to break those patterns. Yeah. It's
doing what you feel is it's doing what you feel is comfortable for you, though, isn't it? So writing would be, I mean, it clearly suits you.
It does. And although, you know what, I do have to, so I'm doing this new thing. I'm just going to do it I'm going to start doing it as a paid offering in January, but this entire year I've been giving Akashic Records readings to writers.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
I was going to ask you about that because you mentioned that at the beginning of the episode of the podcast episode that we did last year. You talked about that, but you didn't say you weren't doing any. You trained with somebody and you were doing a little bit for yourself and maybe a couple of things for other people, but you weren't doing it professionally. So you're doing it professionally now, are you?
No, I was going to start doing that from January onwards. I've been doing basically in last December, I decided I'm going to do free readings the entire year, mostly focus on writers because that's my people. And so I've been doing that. And also because I really needed to find my format. And so as an introvert, initially my entire format was offline. So I went into someone's records offline. So I basically instructed I'll be in your records from this, somewhere between this and this time. So you go sit with yourself, have a nice cup of tea, maybe do some meditation, do some yoga, do something, like be open. And then I'd write them a report, and I just send them the report, which is like pages long. And because I'm like, I'm not going to do it one-on-one because that's just really not my thing. But then at one point I did a reading for a daughter of a writer friend of mine. And the results were so complex that I felt this nudge, and I emailed her and I said, could you jump on a Zoom call with me instead? I know I promised a report, but I think this would be easier over Zoom. And that is completely that's out of my comfort zone. But I did it, and it was so wonderful because there was so much more depth to the reading. So so I do need to push myself out of my comfort zone sometimes. So now I'm offering it like this. I do the reading offline, and then immediately afterwards I do a Zoom call, and then we chat about what I found, and we sort of see if we can find some deeper layers in there. So yeah, I do need to push myself, because I think for me, when I do interact with, like, the reason I want to connect with people is because, like, I want to help people. So that for me is a reason this is why I want to connect with people.
Okay.
So I do need to get myself.
Yeah, can I ask anybody that's watching at the moment, Linda or Jenna, have you got any questions that you would like to ask Marielle about this book, about Tarot for Entrepreneurs? Because I know both of you ladies, I know Linda in particular, is wanting to sort of, establish a business, a profession, get out in online more. Is there anything you ladies would like to ask Marielle about any of the spreads in the book that might apply to yourselves, or something that she could, any questions at all that you might want to ask Marielle? Just pop them into the comments, and I mean, I'm gonna work through this book.
It's a lot.
So it is a lot, isn't it? It's great though. I mean, how did you get the images? How did you do that?
What do you mean, the images?
The images, how did you get that layout in the book?
Oh, you mean the
Word?
spreads?
You do that on Word? Yeah.
No, Canva is my friend. So you mean, because it was white on your page, you mean this?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I do this all in Canva. Yes, all of it, okay. Yes. So even for example, at the back, you have some pendulum charts.
Yes.
And these were all made in Canva, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you made those in Canva and as an image, and then you just put the image into...
No, the entire book is made in Canva.
The whole book was made in Canva? You're kidding? Yes. Really?
No, it's really my happy place. Yeah. Not the ebook, obviously. For the ebook, I did separate images in Canva.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't recommend writing a whole book in Canva. Like, I wouldn't do a novel. But since I work a lot with imagery, it's just, for me, it's the easiest way to go about it. Yeah. Like, all my nonfiction books are made in Canva. Yeah. I didn't know you didn't know that.
You need to write a book. You need to write a book about that.
Oh God, no! There's too many. So I'm just gonna. I just want to show people the color version. So this is the hardback. It's printed on premium color. Yeah. I can't figure out the camera. Yeah. So this is one of those multiple page. Like, this is a spread that's actually a couple of parts.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So there's actually more than 50 in it. I saw Linda saying something.
Yeah.
I've already put the book in my basket for payday. Thank you, Linda. Does the book give you strategies based on what cards you pull for specific business areas? No, it's very meta. I'm a very meta kind of person. But, and this is my approach to life and to tarot, none of these spreads are actually set in stone for me, so you can definitely adapt them. Like I also put this in the introduction, like be very flexible, like change the questions if you need, change the layout if you need, if it feels better for you. So there's nothing specific. So it's not like, oh, this is a great one for the service industry. So if you see a spread and you're like, oh, this kind of works for what I want to ask, you can just change one of the questions and make it more specific to your line of business. Yeah, I mean, that is one of the things where I struggle sometimes with, is that people can be really rigid about how to work with certain, and I'm like, no, just work with it the way you want to work it. Yeah. But no, there's nothing specifically. I'm like, oh, can you imagine having that? Then it would be like, the book would be like this.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. No, I think it's great the way you've done it, because it's then open. It keeps it open to everybody's interpretation of what their idea of is of business. You know. What is your idea of a good business?
Well, the funny thing is that there are as many answers to that as there are people on the planet. But what are you doing?
So I was getting caught up in my earphone things.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. Because for me, as long as you do it the way that you're supposed to do it as in society or other people tell you to do it, but the way you're supposed to do it from the inside out, that's the best. That's what a good business is. If you do it the way that feeds your soul, then you are doing it in the right way. But so the best business for me is or the best way to do business is do it. So that is my model. Like, do it, even if it feels you're going against the grain. Actually, if you feel like you're going against the grain, you're probably doing really well. So yeah, that for me is definitely, I don't like shortcuts. People who try to take shortcuts. Again, that's all based on fears and fear. So greed comes from fear of lack. So everyone who tries to speed things up, once more in a shorter period of time, in a time frame that's not really aligned with the time they should be, the pace they should be taking. No, so it's a very personalized idea for me. Like, it's different for everybody. So somebody the way you need to do your business might not resonate with me at all. But that's perfectly fine. And this is the thing which you said about earlier about there's so many of those marketing courses. I'm not against all that, but what I'm against is people saying, this is how I do it, and you need to do it exactly the same way. Because then you'll be successful. I've always been very eclectic to life. So I'm like, I just see what other people are doing, and when my brain goes like, that's interesting, I'll take it and look at it and see if it fits with what I want to do. And I think that's the same. I think that's how you should. I think that would be a good way to go about how you want to build your business. Yeah. Oh, Linda says, I guess what I'm
asking. Yeah.
Did you see the comment?
Yeah.
So Linda's asking, I guess what I'm asking is, do you need a good working knowledge of tarot to get the most out of the book? Well, all my books have like tarot in the title, but you can do them with any type of card deck you want. So if you're more familiar with Lenormand or Oracle deck, that's completely fine. There's really no... So my question to you, Linda, would be, are you a cartomancer in any way? Or are you asking, do I need to understand cards, card reading, card slinging to use the book? Because that's the thing is, though, and this is why I showed you. I just showed you one of the spreads that was like It's one of, I think that one's actually a 4-part spread. And the reason for this is that initially some of the spreads in this book were really big. And when the spreads went through some testers, like I have a group of people who test my work before it goes anywhere near other people. And some of them were like, that's really complex. And you don't like doing that, remember? And I was like, that is very true. I like to keep it simple and approachable so that people do not get intimidated. So that's why those spreads, I tore them apart and made them into separate parts so that the book remained accessible to both beginning card readers and people who have, like you, like yourself, like how many decades have you been reading cards, Sheena?
Oh,
a few.
Well, yeah, quite a few. Yeah, about 40.
Yeah. So
more than
that is really what I want. I want people to be able to work with it no matter their level. Linda, that's exactly okay. Linda says, I have a little knowledge of cards meaning, but I normally refer to several reference books and take what feels right in the situation. That's perfect. That's exactly how I do it. That's like, I do not like, I have so many card decks. I mean, there's, when you use a tarot, there's like the standard meaning, right? The standards sort of from the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of meaning. But I have so many card decks who give a slightly different interpretation. I have too many decks, also oracle decks, that I cannot remember by heart all of them. So yeah, I do the same when I use a particular deck. If I'm like, how does this work for me? I will look at the reference book. I really don't. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. So that works perfectly if you have a deck and you have a reference book, or like, you have your resources online, you can work with the book for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So how about your book?
My book?
Yes.
No, well, I did a talk on Monday night at a London pub.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. There wasn't that many people there, but they were an attentive audience, which was all you can want, really, all you can wish for, isn't it? And yeah. I was in a bit of a flurry when I got there. Ian and I got lost in Romford. That's where it was, which is kind of outskirts of London, Marielle. And so we live right out in the country. So by the time we got there, and it was all bright lights, big city, and so we were in a bit. We were late, basically. I was late, so and you're kind of nervous enough when you're doing these things, and then when you're late and you get lost, and the bloody sat nav was taking us down dead ends and all that kind of thing. So anyway, I got there, and but actually it was fine, because I knew the lady that had asked me to do it. I knew her. She's another tarot reader, and she teaches tarot, and we met. That's how we met, doing tarot at various different events, and so it was really good. And I did. I talked a little bit about the book. I like to give people a bit of an experience of what's in the book. So I did a path working with them, which was okay. Actually, it worked fine. It was in a pub, but it was upstairs in a pub. So there wasn't too much other background noise. So I took my little Bluetooth speaker, and I had a soundtrack playing on my phone, because I don't know about you, but I like to create a bit of an ambience, and I did, I read a little bit from the book, and then I did a path working, just to give them a little bit of experience of it. When I did an actual book launch, the book launch locally in the next village from here, about a couple of months ago, I actually burnt some incense, which was some of the incense that I've, because there is so much in the book. There's so many practices and crafts, and incense making is one of those. So I've got an incense for abundance, and I wanted to they were a very small group of people, and I just wanted to burn some incense, let them all sort of, talk about the incense and how powerful incense can be, because the olfactory sense is, carries memory. And when we remember, we remember senses, smells. And if you know that a certain smell, your cat's going mad in the background. I don't know what it's doing. It's flying about. You've got a flying cat.
I'm just trying to ignore it. Yeah. I struggle. It's a struggle. Yeah.
But
I love that's very grounded. That's a very grounded approach to a book launch.
Well,
I love it.
I just like to. Well, the thing is, it's a practical book. Do you know what I mean? It's got lots of practical stuff in it. There's so many tools and techniques and practices within the book that I just wanted to illustrate to people, because when I was writing the book, I very much saw it as a course. So
I can
no
see
doubt
that.
one day it will be a course. Yeah, it will be a course.
I can see that.
Like
I would. Oh, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on. You go. You go first.
I was gonna say, when I was reading the book, it's really silly, but the only description that just came to my mind is that the book is very rich, which I thought was hilarious, but that's exactly the kind of feeling that I got. And the layers, right. I was making notes about. I love, because I have this so this is not like it's a tarot book. This is a tarot for entrepreneurs. It's tarot spreads, but then for the first time, I've never done that before. I've added other intentional practices, so very practical things you can do to create the best atmosphere, like in your home office, stuff like that. So I also there's a bit on essential oils and stuff, right? Like the good essential oils you can use to sort of raise the vibration in your office, stuff like that. So I really loved that you didn't do a chapter on crystals and a chapter on this and a chapter on that. It was very much at one point you started to blend and weave them all together. So for me, it felt like it was all, and that is just the magic. As I was reading, I was like, this is how it's all sort of so it became this sort of dance for me. So I really enjoyed reading, seeing it like that, and just the reading experience was lovely.
Yeah, well, that's how I experience magic, really, is give me a theme, give me an intention, and then you work towards that intention, because let's face it, writing a book is an act of magic, isn't it? It's a manifestation that we set in motion when we start off with the idea. And when I was writing that book, I mean, and it's no mean feat writing a book, is it? I mean, and something like that. I mean, God, I had real imposter syndrome. When I first started writing that. Who was I?
This particular one
about being rich? Yeah. Oh, everyone.
Yeah.
The last.
Okay, no, but
I had imposter syndrome.
Yeah, but was it extra? Because for me, with this one, it has never been as strong as it was when I was writing this one.
Oh,
I've had some really bad days. Two reasons, I think, because I'm writing for entrepreneurs, and I kind of feel that means that I'm saying that I'm a successful entrepreneur, which I think a lot of people do think that I am, but that's hard for myself to acknowledge. But also because, like I said, this is the first time. So doing the tarot spreads, it's sort of I've done that. I'm doing that. That's become my comfort zone. So for me, writing about all these other, there's a chapter on crystal programming. There's a chapter on how to work with a pendulum.
I saw that actually.
Setting intentions in the morning. How do you wind down after work? How do you cut those ties? Stuff like that. How do you separate the energy, all of that. And that is just not something, that's all stuff I know. It's not something that I've shared with people that I know, and also not something I ever written about. So I think it was just something new for me. And I still have a bit of that witch wound, that sort of admitting the things that I know. That's really, and I've been really, that this year has really been for me about healing that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I write about that in here about the witch wound, and about how that kind of, let me see if because I was reading about it this afternoon, because we have to remind ourselves, don't we, even though we've written the damn book, we have to remind ourselves what's in it, which I think is quite funny.
Because
really,
when you finish a book, your head is already in the next one. To me, anyway, like I finish a book and then it's on to the next project.
Can I read a bit? I'll just read the bit from
go.
Oh God, I can't see. Okay, so the witch wound. It's in the Lessons of Money chapter. So how does it manifest? The witch wound manifests as a form of disempowerment that prevents us from allowing our gifts to shine and speak our truth. It can show up as insecurity, lack of confidence, and imposter syndrome, to name but a few. It weighs us down and stops us from living our true and divine purpose. It stops us from believing in the magic of ourselves. Fear is at the root of such a festering wound. This internalizing of the patriarchy has immobilized many wise women and witches. We hold ourselves back, shame ourselves, ignore our intuition, deny our desires, and belittle our creativity. And when it comes to money, we can be very good at self-sabotaging.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to read that out because you were just talking about imposter. I mentioned imposter syndrome. You were talking about how you basically not wanting to let our light shine, isn't it? Really, and I think that it's such an ingrained piece of programming, really, that many of us, I don't think it's not just witches, but many women and many people, it can run in their ancestral lines, it can run into past lives. I mean, you know more about past lives than I do. I was just
going to say, like, you don't want to know how often the witch wound shows up in the Akashic Records readings I do for writers.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's a very common occurrence, or a similar. It's either just sort of wounds created by the patriarchy. So promises, like vows we made back then.
Yeah.
Because we found ourselves in an unsafe situation, because in those particular lives we were women. Right? We're not always the same gender, depending on which life it is. So when we made some decisions or tried, like a lot of writers were creative in past lives, but for some reason, because they were women, for example, they couldn't be, or they were in danger once people realized how great they were at their craft. So they make all these kinds of promises, like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I'll never write a book again. But the thing is, of course, you say that in the moment, but then your soul goes like, oh, great, never. That's great. We'll take that on. And then in the next life, the next life, and the next life.
Yeah. And also, I've been penalized or persecuted or hung or burnt or whatever it is for sharing my gifts. For sharing my gifts. Yeah, for sharing whatever those gifts are, for sharing our gifts. So, I better not do it. I'll hide under a bushel in this life, and nobody can get me. Do you know what I mean? I'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think, like, on the collective level, this is the first generation where it's safe.
It's definitely getting better, isn't it? It's definitely getting more, people are feeling more able, women are feeling more able to stand up and be counted. You think about it, it's only the last bloody 100 years that we've had the vote, for God's sake. What's all that about?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is not, and that's the Netherlands and the UK, but there are European countries where women didn't have to vote until, I think, the 60s. So we forget about that. Actually. Yeah. We have one user saying, I'm sure I suffer from the witch wound. I'm like, yeah, it's actually a very common occurrence, because, of course, like during the witch trials, any woman who was a bit more knowledgeable was in danger. So I think, like, women on a collective level had to suppress their intuition to stay alive. So not even if you were dabbling in anything, right? It was just dangerous to be a woman and show that you know certain things just because you have that intuition. The same for men, of course. I mean, men were burned as well during the witch trials.
Yes.
Let's not forget about that. So I think I think this whole trusting your intuition has been a dangerous activity for quite a long time.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And so is it no surprise really that witchcraft is becoming more and more popular in the modern world? Because it is.
I think it's a sign that we are reclaiming it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're reclaiming our intuitions.
Into power.
Yes. Oh God, yes. Finally. And it's hard. I mean, this is another thing I really appreciate about your book, because a lot of books about abundance and manifestation and stuff, they're very, well, you just raise your vibration and then you're done. But I'm like, the work that goes into that, and you do not, like, you actually, the book is set up in a way that you first do the work. And I'm like, that is because there's a lot of, it's a lot of like, oh, it's so easy, but there is so much, we have so many emotional wounds, we have so much baggage. So you deal with the shadow work. You mention so many people don't even mention the shadow work.
Oh my God, of course, because it's easy to be lulled into a sense of false security by the voices that say all you have to do is visualize what you want, do a little spell and then bugger off and it will come into everything will be your dream will be made manifest, just leave it up to the universe, never mind, it's all going to happen, happy ever after. No, because unfortunately we have something called programming and trauma that we all suffer from, and these are wounds as well. These are all wounds that we carry within our psyches, aren't they? And unfortunately they are buried so deep, some of those wounds, and it's like a program that's running the whole time consistently. And if you've been, for example, if you've been brought up in a household where your parents were either worried about money or didn't have much money, their attitude towards money, attitude towards money was one of lack and limitation, then and you as a child were brought up in that atmosphere, then unfortunately you will have ingested energetically that at a vibrational level. And so it takes, like as you said, it takes a lot of work to because I'm 60 now, Marielle, and only in the last 10 years really have I started to peel away those layers and really dig in deep and face what has been going on, finding out what it is. And luckily I've got the tools and the practices to tackle that, and I think that being a witch is one of the most wonderful things as regards to that, because there are so many, because it's such an enjoyable thing to do, but having said that, when you work with when you do your shadow work, that's heavy digging in a dark place, with only a little match sometimes, and sometimes the match goes out, you haven't got any light at all, and you're thinking, shit, I'm totally in unknown territory here. And that, for me, is where we call on our guides. We call on the crone goddess, the dark goddesses, to come in and give us a hand, please. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing here. Please, I surrender. And and the thing is, in the book as well, I don't only use deities, but, I work a lot with Archangel Michael, because I think he's a wonderful mighty God force energy that can really help us with worry and fear. You know, he takes away our worries and our fears,
and he protects.
He's a marvelous, absolutely, yeah. He's the guy. He's the policeman. He's Mr. Plod of the angel fraternity, isn't he? Mr. Plod, Policeman Plod, Archangel Michael. Thank God for you. You know, I wrote a song about Michael years ago. So I'm into all the spiritual help. I'm open to every kind of spiritual help there is, because bloody hell, you need it when you're doing the kind of shadow work that you need to do to get over your roadblocks, to remove those roadblocks, to even be aware of them, you know, what they are. But yeah, once you're in there, once you're doing it, and you know, you start to feel like you're making progress. You start to feel like, actually, yes, because, you know, people make these sweeping statements. Oh, you've got to let it go. You've got to release all this, and, you know, leave the past behind you. Well, it's easier said than done, don't you think, to leave the past behind you?
I think the letting go part becomes after the acknowledging and the processing.
Yes, definitely.
Because otherwise you're gonna have a very like it's very superficial, right? So it's almost like what you call the false sense of security. And the thing is, in that moment you might think, oh, I dealt with all this stuff, but the slightest thing has to happen. And those all patterns, because you do, yes, and it's still a trigger because you haven't actually worked on the pattern. You haven't actually broken the pattern. And for me, and I know not everybody agrees with me on that, I feel that to break the pattern, one must understand the pattern, or at least understand the origin of the pattern. Yeah, I was just gonna, because that you were talking about this, and I actually have some spreads in the book about the money story that you tell yourself, like, and how can you get like
good.
So and it is indeed like one of the questions. So this is again one of those part 1, part 2, part 3 spreads, because money stories are quite, you know, there's a lot. There's often a lot of layers in there. So one of the questions is, where does the story come from? And I mean, so often what's drawn here is the 6 of Wands, which is it 6 of Wands or 6 of Cups? Oh God, I've seen the image. No, it's not 6 of Wands. 6 of Cups. The nostalgia, the past. So it got mixed up with my suits. Yeah. So it is often a childhood wound.
Yes, definitely. Or something that hasn't been processed, something that we've experienced, and we haven't been mature enough to process those emotions at the time. Like, for example, you know, when you suffer loss at an early age, you know, that might be a pet, it might be a friend. You know, so you might have a friend that, you know, you split up with or whatever, you know, you fall out with. It might be your parents splitting up, you know. You might suffer loss, you know, in the worst possible way. You might lose somebody through death, you know, and that's a hell of a thing to go through and experience at the time. And quite often, and I know that because I've done it myself, it's happened to me. You know, it happened to me when I was a young woman. I lost my brother, and he was only a teenager, you know, and I was at that age where I was starting to go out, starting to, you know, a bit of a party, and, you know, love socializing, always have done. And I buried myself in sort of partying basically for many years. And of course, you don't go through something like that without picking up then habits, you know, like maybe drinking a little bit too much, you know, overeating, because that was some comfort eating, which is what, you know, I still do. So it's like you have these lifelong patterns, like as you just said, patterns that unless you understand why you've got them, why they're still running, you can't delete them, can you? You can't stop them. You can't change that energy until you understand it. Yeah.
And it's not, and this is the interesting part, of course, or the most frustrating part maybe, is that even knowing the pattern and the sort of like acknowledging the pattern doesn't necessarily end the pattern yet. It's just that this is the moment you have to start making different decisions, like consciously. Like I think some people think, oh, once I know where it comes from, I'm done with it. For some patterns, maybe, but there will be some that are so ingrained.
Yeah. And I think that's where you need to reach out and get the help that you need. And I do say that in the book, you know, it's not all, you can't just, if you need the specific help of a trained professional therapist, you know, then go and get it, for God's sake. Go and get that help, you know. I mean, I've only recently been able to do that because only recently I've had the money to do it. But, you know, it's like everything that we do in the spiritual and holistic field, you know, it's a complementary support system. It's not, you know, you have to look at everything you have to look at the full picture. And if you need to go and see somebody and, you know, like a therapist, then for God's sake, go and get that help, you know. But this is, in my book, it's, go on.
But that's why for me, because it's interesting, for me, this is why we call it holistic. But interestingly, people separate between like Western medicine and holistic. But I'm like, in a true holistic approach, Western, so my cats are still having a field day. In a holistic approach, like you incorporate everything.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So a spiritual practice does not cancel out psychotherapy, for example.
No.
Or life coaching or whatever you need. Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't be here today the way I am without therapists along the way.
No. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And isn't that why we become therapists, I think, really, because we know that we have to actually be in a fit enough state to be able to serve in that way. You need to have done the work on yourself. You need to have, you know, to a certain degree, don't you?
And I think you need to understand others. And I think you need to understand how hard it is to do that kind of work.
Definitely.
But this is like when I initially started coaching writers, and this shifted really quickly. But initially, I was coaching them on their stories, right? So so we had sessions when they reached a block in their particular story. So they were using me as a sounding board, and then we, you know, figured out how to get the story moving again. And I really quickly switched to becoming a coach on the author mindset, because that, like, if mindset wise you're not there, your writing is also not going to be there. No. And I'm much more interested in working with that, like making sure that writers specifically, although I do work with some other creative people. Some people are just drawn to you, like no matter what I say, just work with writers. They're just like, oh, but I do this. Can I still? Yeah, sure. Because it's still creative work, right? So it's just, I know most about writing, of course. But the ice for me is much more, it's almost like, no, not almost, it's addressing the layer underneath. Because I think a lot of sort of the surface problems of what do you run into when you're writing a book can be solved by understanding where you are coming from as a writer and why you want to write particular books, what your particular message is, why you might be struggling to speaking that particular message, all that. I think for me, that is much more interesting and also much more sustainable to deal with that, instead of more like, for me, like having a struggle with your particular story is almost, and dealing with that is almost like just dealing with the symptoms instead of dealing with the cause.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. And as you were speaking there, I could just tell that's your passion. That is what you love to do. That is your message, isn't it? Like you said, writing is what I'm used to teaching. I'm used to teaching, helping writers,
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that. That's how that's how you're expressing what you are here to do, and we've all got our own unique talents and unlimited amounts of potential, but unless we can work with unless we can master our own energy, and basically that is what a witch does. She works to master her own energy. And it's like I say to my students and clients and things, it's all very well knowing how to do a spell, all right, and working on the Sabbaths or on a full moon, wonderful, but that is not what a being witch is all about, unfortunately. It'd be very nice if it was, and wearing bell shaped bloody sleeves and having all the regalia and everything. It's all those props are great fun, and I've got all of them as well. Do you know what I mean? I love my candles and my crystals and my floaty dresses that probably don't fit me anymore, but and all that jazz. All right, but
it's the pandemic. It's not your fault.
No, I'm still working with that post-lockdown lard. Damn it. But but unless you can, it's all very well thinking that you can manipulate and control the environment. You can do that to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, unless you're working with your own energy and you can control who you are, then and deal with your own stresses and strains, then you ain't going to get far, I'm afraid, because life is going to trip you up, and it's about learning to think independently, regardless of circumstance and situation and personal conditions. And it is tough. That is the toughest, probably, is being able to think independently of condition and circumstance. When everybody around you is screaming, to actually sit there and be peaceful. Yeah, absolutely.
To not be reactive.
And that's why the pandemic was such a challenge for so many people in so many different ways, wasn't it? We all suffered. All of us, luckily I didn't suffer
my
that much.
My inner workaholic went mad. I'm still trying to. It was for me like my introvert, like being an introvert, having social anxiety, and being a workaholic. All of my bad patterns were just having so much fun during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But it's the aftermath that I think it's not just me. I think a lot of us are dealing with the aftermath of all the things that showed up for us during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So for me,
that's one of the inspirations, one of the reasons why I wrote that book, because I wanted to cheer myself up. I wanted to cheer other people up and give them some hope that actually things could be better. Things can be better.
Agency.
But we have to believe it. We have to believe that they are going to be better, and we have to want to feel that we're going to take the action that's involved in making them better.
But that's what you offer them. You offer them the agency, I think.
Right? Yeah, taking back our power.
Yeah, a power. Yeah. It's very empowering work. Yeah.
Listen, I think there are some questions that people did ask in the Witchlit group when I put this
I'm just
out.
I'm just gonna pour myself some more tea.
Yeah, so I think that both of us can answer these questions, even though they're kind of around witches for witches. But I think both of us can answer these questions. So I'm going to ask, because the time's getting on, Marielle. It's
I know this is almost getting near my bedtime.
I know. I'm getting a bit tired. Right. So Lucia Starza from the Witchlit group says, what, if anything, do you carry around to attract wealth? Do you have an amulet or talisman or charm, for example?
Okay, so carry around. So carry around would be this.
Or wear.
Carry around would be this one.
Okay.
So this is citrine.
Oh,
citrine
look.
with
I've
gold
got
stone. See?
I've got citrine.
So citrine with gold stone. The thing I do not carry around is the 7-kilo piece of citrine I have in the left corner of my office.
Oh, right. Nice.
I did bring it when I moved to Cyprus. I brought it with me in my carry-on, actually. So I had 7 kilos of citrine. It's like this big. It's lovely. So that one, but so that I do not carry around, but that is sitting in my office in the left corner, because citrine in the left corner of your workspace attracts abundance.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Left corner of your workspace.
Yeah. So when you're in the door opening, in the door frame.
Yes.
Left corner.
About my office. Yes. Left corner. Okay, so that'll be where Ian sits.
So from the entrance. So you're outside looking in. What's the left corner?
Oh, okay. Left. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
From that angle. Yes. Drop a piece of citrine there.
Yeah. Citrine really is a stone of abundance, isn't it? Okay, yeah, I think we can both agree with that. Citrine. I've got a citrine pendant I was going to put on tonight, actually, and forgot all about it, but I've got a lovely piece of citrine thanks to Helen Conway from Cauldron Creations. Okay, I'll talk about the next question is, Riches for Witches has a lightness to it. Reading it felt like the reading equivalent of a chat with a good friend around the kitchen table. Did you define an ideal reader for the book? If so, how would you describe them?
That's a really good question, Sheena.
Yeah, it is a good question. Yes, I mean, there were times when I had particular friends in my mind, people that I knew that I thought they need this book. You know, I'm writing this for them. This would be great for them. You know, really this. But not one person in particular. But there were times when the people did come into my mind. Yes. What about you? Do you have a reader avatar?
That's really difficult. No, it's actually not. I'm making it difficult in my head. I'm really good at that. I would say people who kind of know that something is not going the way they want it to be going, and they just need a nudge in the right direction. So they have sort of an inkling of, I think I need some work in this area, or I could use some guidance in this area. But for me, it all boils down to like all of my work, like, so not just my tarot books, but also like my writing journals and stuff. It is all about coming home to yourself.
Yeah.
So it's for those people who are like, I'm so done living my life in a way that I think I should be living it. I want to know what I want and what I need and what I need to say. And what happens when I fire up my own inner power? What happens then? That's my audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the people who I speak to, the people who are like, give me this nudge, like show me the way. Like give me something practical so I can find out what works best for me and how to get there. Milk that.
Yeah, how to discover the true essence of who they really are. You know, because everybody has got a magical nature. Everybody has got a higher self. Everybody's a soul. You know, it's just actually, like as you say, redirecting them back. And isn't that what a tarot reading is all about? I mean, I think we've spoken about this before. You know, when you do a reading for somebody, you are really redirecting them back to their own inner wisdom.
I always talk about this, and I also wrote it in the introduction to Tarot for Entrepreneurs. Like for me, tarot is like one of the best tools to directly connect to your intuition, because when you ask a question and you draw a tarot card, the layers of bullshit that you drag around, like the baggage, the patterns, the triggers, they're not there in the moment. They might still show up when you read that card, because you can read cards. If you want to read cards a certain way, you can definitely do that. Like you can manipulate your own reading if you want to, if you're not actually open to reading the card for what it is saying to you. I mean, I see people do that. But if you're open to it, this is why I always say, like, the cards can really slap you in the face. Like we call them bitch slaps from the universe, because they cut through all those layers of nonsense, that like ego madness that's trying to tell you certain things about yourself and what you should be doing. And it just goes straight to the point. Yeah. So that's I see it definitely as a tool to just connect to your intuition, like bam. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I love the tarot. Okay, this is an interesting one. And it's from Dorothy L. Abrams, and she says, I was just having a discussion yesterday with a woman generous to a fault and always on the edge of financial disaster. She was struggling with that really, despite being a good person. What kind of karma is this? As we talked, her secretly held belief in her own deep-seated sense of unworthiness popped out of her mouth. It was a revelation. What advice would you give?
You go first.
I think we've talked about this. Well, I wrote this. I wrote the answers down here. I put any past wounds around money can be healed when we understand their origins. So we've talked about that, past conditioning, trauma. And the basis of all our personal healing work is connected to some level of trauma from the past, this life or past lives. Fear is the root of these festering wounds. Internalizing of the patriarchy has disempowered many. We hold ourselves back, shame ourselves. Yeah, I've said all that. My advice would be, and I did actually ask another question when I said, is this lady open to, or is she spiritual, or does she have a magical awareness of any kind? And the answer was she thinks she's an Anglican. Is that a Christian?
Yes, I think the Anglican Church is
okay.
Is that not the English Church?
I don't know. I don't know much about the different aspects of the church. Listen, you're talking to a bloody witch woman. I
know this from like research for novels, but that's like, it's for me. It's like because I find in my work I go against that. It's very definitely Christian.
Okay. Yeah. My advice would be to reflect on your upbringing. I've got a practice for it right at the beginning of the book when I talk about our past conditioning, and being brought, having that sort of mindset of lack and limitation. Reflect on upbringing around money and abundance, family attitudes, and see how you feel about it, and then write about it. Working with the dark goddesses and the crone energy, Angel Michael, and really, at the end of the day, it's about valuing the time that you spend on yourself, valuing your time, and knowing that your time is valuable. And if that means that you take, I don't know how old this lady is, but it doesn't matter what age you are. You've got to spend the time on your own self-healing. You've got to do it. You've got to do the work. This is the work that we've been talking about. And whether that means reaching out and getting help from somebody else, a professional, or if it just means going and chatting to your mates, and because I don't know about you, but conversation, talking, expressing how you feel to people that you feel you can talk to in a safe space can be really healing, can't it? And then you know, there's all the magical practices in the book. There's working with music, there's working with path workings. I mean, that's what I'm offering, you know, it is what I do, is what I teach, is what I help people with. But I would say in general, not knowing this lady, I would say she needs to sit down and really reflect on where those deep rooted, that self-sabotaging comes from, you know, because if she's always on the brink of financial disaster, then it's, you know, you can't carry on like that, can you?
No.
What do you think, Marielle?
Similar. I would initially, especially because I heard Anglican, I would say, because that just reminds me. So my advice, no, I'm not Anglican. No, I'm not. Okay. I was not raised. I was not raised anything, like no church, no spiritual, nothing, like completely atheist, which was very hard when I realized that that's not who I am. So I would say that this lady, this woman, would benefit from looking at the women who came before her and reflect on how much they gave and how much they asked for. And I'm saying Anglican makes me, that just does something to me, because if I look at the Christian church, like the sacrificial mother, it's not just part of patriarchy, but it's, of course, like Christianity and patriarchy cannot really be that's just like the systems are so interwoven. But if this woman grew up in an environment where women gave and gave and gave and didn't ask for anything in return,
yes,
because that's the sort of, that's how we viewed women, or that's how women were viewed back in the day. Like good motherhood was giving, giving, and giving. Because if you look at the church, like the mother who gives up her son. So again, like I don't know the age of this particular woman, but for example, like First World War, Second World War, the idea of the woman who's giving up her son for the good cause, right? That's that keeps coming back in our sort of narratives of what a good mother does, right? And she suffers
like
in silence.
An archetype.
It is an archetype, yeah. So I would say practically that it would be really beneficial if she looks at the women who came before her, so mother, aunties, grandmother, and so what does she see there in terms of like giving and receiving? So this for me is very Six of Pentacles. You know, there's something off with the giving and receiving here. And then not just acknowledge, but also how does she actually feel about that? Because I know a lot of women who repeat the patterns of their grandmothers and their mothers while being extremely critical of the fact that their grandmothers and mothers did these things to themselves. But they repeat them because it is what they were shown.
Yeah.
So practically, I would start there just to figure out, like you said, like where is it coming from? But I mean, it's such a common thing that I'm gonna, and this is probably shouldn't, but I want to assume that this has to do with particular upbringing. And then if you mix in Christian doctrine, that's often, layered on top of that. So if that's the message that you get, that what women are for is women are here to give, not to take.
Receive.
Not to receive, yeah.
That
would be my advice. So that's but that's the start of the process, of course, right? Like that's the start of the process, the figuring it out. But that's why I said not just reflecting on how these women dealt with giving and receiving, but also how she feels about that herself looking back. Like how does she actually feel about the fact that the women in her environment, and actually I'm saying women, but it could actually in any particular case, it could actually be the father figure who had this pattern. That's of course also possible. So it could be the father or the grandfather or the brother or the uncle or who have you, whoever, like sort of parental and peer figures you have around you. And then honestly reflect on, how do you actually feel about that? Like, do you admire that in them, or do you actually secretly pity them for that, or wish it could have been different for them? And then see what happens inside of you once you've connected those dots.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a pretty good answer. We've given some pretty good answers.
If she's open to the tarot, she should definitely put the Six of Pentacles out for a while.
Yeah. Ooh. Okay. Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm giving a talk in a couple of weeks' time at a spiritual centre, the local spiritual centre, where I've been told there are some people that I don't know if they'll even go, but who have no idea, they've got this idea about witches being, having a demon for breakfast or something, and I don't know. But I don't know.
Well, only certain types of demons taste well.
Yeah, quite. So. But like I said to the lady the other day, I'm not really going to be justifying what I do or even explaining what I do, but hopefully just talking about what I write about and how I live my life is going to be a good enough illustration for them, and I said at the end of the day, people can, if people want to read up on the history of witchcraft, there's plenty of information that where they can find that knowledge, on the internet, from books. We can only demonstrate how our lives are, how we live our lives magically. That's all we can do, and it's a different and unique path for each person, don't you think?
I do, and I think it's the whole leading by example thing. So instead of feeling that you have to argue for what you're like, the way you're living your life is the right way for you. It's for example, this is gonna sound really completely irrelevant, but for example, I'm a vegan. But I'm not, a lot of people always say, oh, you're one of the good ones, because I don't convert people to veganism. I hardly ever talk about it. It only ever comes up if people want to invite me for food or offer me something and I have to ask, is it vegan, right? It never comes up. But what has happened, so I've never converted anyone actively, but people have come to me and asked serious questions about it and then decided to try it for themselves. So for me, that's the way to do it. Like, you just do your thing.
Yes.
And then if people notice and they're like, then they come and ask.
What do they call it when you try and convert somebody by preaching to them? Is it proselytizing? It's proselytizing, isn't it?
I think so,
people like Jehovah's Witnesses, and they come around and they try and convert you, I mean, that is not the way of the witch. The witch does not do that. All she does is she's just herself or himself. We are ourselves. We live our own lives in the way that makes us happy, where we can express our magic and create our magic in the way which is best to serve our community, serve humanity, and that. Let that be the example to people. But at the end of the day, if you're writing about how you live your life, which we both do, then our books speak for themselves, don't they, really?
Yeah. And I don't write about why I live my life the way I live my life. I simply write, this is how I do it. Yeah. I do have, can I ask you one question? Just because
yes.
And I know this depends. This is why I want to ask you about your definition of witchhood, because I know that different. Yeah. This is, now we're getting to the bottom of it. Because I know that, because interestingly, over my life, I've had people scoff at the idea that I'm a witch. And I've also had people scoff at the idea that I'm not one.
Oh.
So I'm always curious, because I assume that you would label me as such, or so I'm like, what is your definition of witch? What makes a witch? Yeah.
What makes a witch? I think it's somebody who is deeply connected to the magic of nature and the magic of life, and that in itself is something that's quite personal, and I have found it has become more personal as I've got older, you know. But the general way of how I would put it is somebody who is in tune with the cycles and the seasons, the energies of nature, you know, and works with those energies, works with the natural forces to create change, and within themselves and within their environment, you know. So as above, so below, as within, so without, and does it to the best of their ability for the highest good of all.
And is that
because all manner of tools and practices, and you pick them up along the way, and you create them yourselves, you make it up as you go along.
And is that, because you say people who are doing this, is it people who are already there, or is it also people who are committed to getting there? Is it like a spectrum?
I think that, yes.
Or anybody who's inclined?
Yes, of course. Of course. I've had people come to, students that have been in my courses. I had a couple of ladies last year who one was interested in crystals. That's how that was the portal, that was the doorway that was, you know, inviting her in. And another
lady for a
was
lot.
just
it's really fun to see.
Another lady was just very curious about the whole idea of witchcraft. And both of those ladies came and worked with me in that 6-month course on the Witch Wavelength. It was based on my first book, that first non-fiction book. And both of them blossomed. But one of them, the one lady who was working with crystals, she's now selling crystals. All right, she's selling them, and she's become a crystal healer. And the other lady has published 3 poetry books, because that was how she wanted to
create.
That's
its own kind of magic. Yeah, that's express her own magic. Own kind of magic. Yeah,
of course it is. And a writing practice was very much one of the practices that I included in the course, because it's one of my practices. Where, you know, it's a magic. Writing to me is a magical practice, and when you are writing about magical stuff, it becomes more so. Don't you think?
I find it like, for me, writing is something sacred. Like, not just writing, the creative act, the act of creation.
Yes. Yeah.
Is extremely sacred to me.
You are creating from scratch. You're working with original energy. You know, it's like making a dinner from scratch with no processed food, but just something.
Cooking is magic.
Grown in the garden. Of course it is. Of course it is. Yeah. I've got the Facebook user, somebody from Facebook, don't know her name, I'm not sure which one it is. Which spiritual centre is it, Sheena? It's in Westcliff, and I'll put it out on Facebook. That's where I'm doing this talk. I'm looking forward to it, actually. Yeah, it's yeah, that's all I can tell. The Balmoral Centre, that's it, Balmoral Centre. But anyway, I think we ought to round it up now, Marielle, because we've been going for over an hour and a half.
Yes.
And your cats have quietened down now, haven't they, in the background?
Oh God. Yes, I can. Can you see her? Can you see her?
Where is she?
There is she.
Oh yeah.
The little dark spot. That's the one who's been running around. That's Fleur. That's my familiar. Yeah.
Oh, she's flopped out.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, no energy
She's
left
exhausted
after.
herself. Exhausted herself.
I've never seen her like this. High energy,
Oh,
I'm
bless her.
guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
She's very attuned. She's very attuned to that. Yeah.
And cats seem to be more so, don't they, than many other animals? I think cats are seem to be more attuned. Do you think?
I mean, I'm not surprised that in a lot of representations of witches, like over the centuries, there's often cats depicted.
Yes.
So there must absolutely be something to that. Yeah. It must be, yeah. And like the whole
Definitely.
sort of the crazy cat lady stereotype, I'm definitely thinking that is also related to cronehood, witchiness, all of that.
Yeah. Well, cats are very independent, aren't they? They don't really need us, do they? They can go out, they can fend for themselves, you know. And I think that's what, perhaps that's what the sort of is so magical about a canine, not a canine familiar, a feline. Familiar.
Yeah. The thing I think with cats is that they're great role models because they have exquisite boundaries, but they will demand attention.
Oh yeah.
They're very unapologetic about their no's and their yeses. I think we can learn a lot from that as women specifically.
Yeah, I really miss having a cat. Our cat we had to have put down a few years ago now. She's buried outside the treehouse. So bless her. We've got 3 dogs, but I'd love another cat. I know she was such a lovely cat. Love Jasmine. She was so lovely.
Like the thing with cats, I think it's with every animal, but I'm mostly, as you know, familiar with cats. But the moment you need a cat in your life, they will appear. That's what cats do. They just show up. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I'll put that out there.
Oh, it was lovely catching. Yeah, it was lovely catching up with you.
It has been lovely, and thank you to everybody that's stuck with us and giving us your questions and your energy, and it's just been lovely knowing that you've been there. So thank you very much for that. Anybody that's watching on catch up, we'll put our links to the books, won't we, Marielle, in the comments?
Yes, we will. Yeah. Just thinking about Linda's comment. Linda, I have whenever I do a Kickstarter and I do something with tarot and cards, I have this little document, a beginner's guide to card slinging. So if you have any worries, shoot me a message and I'll send you the PDF of that. It's just like a 21 page. So if you have any sort of like doubts about your ability to read cards, that might be a nice guide with some tips on how to become more confident in that area. So just give a shout and I'll get it to you.
Okay.
There, you're still here. Okay, Linda. Okay.
Okay. Thanks everybody, and we must do this again when we bring out our next book, Marielle, or maybe before then.
No, anyway, well, you know what would be fun? You know what would be fun? If I do an Akashic reading for you and we discuss it live.
Oh, now you're talking. Okay.
Yeah, we'll do that next year.
Fantastic. Let's do that. Yeah. That would be great. Yeah, love that. Okay.
Yeah,
we'll
do that next year.
Okay, so look forward to that, everybody. Akashic readings live. Wonderful. Okay, take care of yourselves, everybody, and it's bye-bye from myself and Marielle, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.